Okay, we are live. Welcome everyone to Inside the Junior Reign episode number 8. As always, my name is Ben Frank. I am your club president, and with me I have our Chief of Hockey Operations, Paul Esdale. Hey Paul, how you doing?
Good, how are you doing today?
Good. So before we get into today's topic, as always, if you are watching us live or via the replay, we really appreciate your interaction. Give us a thumbs up. Hey, how you doing? In the comments, let us know you're watching. Give us a like, and of course, if you like what you hear, we'd love when you share it with your communities and spread our message. Our topics each week include an inside look on what goes into making the Junior Reign, and on fulfilling our mission of changing lives through sport with all of you along for the ride. And today we're going to be talking about tracking practice. I put in the heading there for today's show what we measure we can manage, and what we measure we can improve. And so I'm going to turn it over to Paul here to talk a little bit about how we track practice and a special challenge that we have for you guys to help us do this over the next couple weeks here.
Great, Ben. Thanks. Yeah, so everyone, we've talked a little bit about the tracking, and USA Hockey developed what's called the Activity Tracker, and that can be found on their website. You can print out a PDF, a hard copy. They also have it on their mobile app and on the USA Hockey Coaching mobile app, and you can download that, and then you can go to the Activity Tracker. And I just pulled it up here on my phone. I'm going to bring this close to the camera if we can see it. So you can see there's a bunch of different categories there. So basically and I want to go over really the details on how you use it. And then we're going to talk about how we're going to use it further.
Robert joined us there. I just want to see. Yeah,
so what you do is anyone can use it. Coach, parent, player, anyone. So what you do is you pick a certain, if you're a parent, you would track your own player, usually. So you could pick them, and then you would follow along the whole practice and use the app to track the actual actions of what your player is doing for the whole entire practice. You can also do it for games, and you can see the differences in the practices and games. And so the categories are very simple. There's a stop. There's stopwatches for total time on ice. So for practices, usually roughly 60 minutes. Explanations. So what that is that's how much the coach is stopping and talking to the group. Time skating, self-explanatory, how much your player is moving. Puck handling, so how much your player has a puck on a stick. And then obviously time skating and puck handling, you can be skating with the puck so that those clocks should be both running until something stops. And then there's number of passes, there's number of passes received, there's number of shots, and there's feedback. So that's coaches' feedback, that's direct feedback. Hey Ben, get down lower, roll your wrists over. That's direct feedback on the ice, and you have to obviously watch the coaches and what they're doing and be aware of that. And so these are some of the categories that USA Hockey's put together in this activity tracker that we use to obviously improve our practices and help our coaches make sure we develop our curriculum, make sure we develop our players better.
So let's just circle back here, Paul. So again, we're talking about, we've had a few episodes in a row on our practices and how important practices are, what we do in the practices, why that relates to our curriculum, how we want to try to get the most out of our practices, because we only have a certain amount of time each week. We obviously want to do the best job we can with the kids. We want to get the most out of it. The activity tracker from USA Hockey, it's an awesome tool. It's been around for a few years. A lot of people don't even really know it's out there or use it very much. I know there's not a lot of clubs that we know of that use it really consistently. And for us, it was a big tool in making the transition we made from association what we were to a model association, and really to help make tangible what's happening, because it's hard to just know how effective a practice is without some way to measure it. So really a tool to even especially within our own practice, even if to know if one practice was a little bit better than another, and certain types of drills were more effective than others. So really to make that tangible, to see numbers on a page and then be able to evaluate that. So we used this. Paul did this for a number of our coaches when we were first transitioning and trying to become better organized how we did practice across all age groups. And really was a great tool. And then we were able to use it after we became a model association. I actually had a presentation at USA Congress showing the difference of what our practices were from what they were tracked before to what they were after we became a model club, and the percentage of increase of development over the course of a whole year with using that style of practice. So actually show other club presidents like the results they can have in their club when they change to different type of practices, and then how to actually measure that going forward to see how effective it is. So it's a tool that, like you said, it's free. It's on the website. It's on the mobile coach app. It's not just something that we can use because we'll continue to use it as a club to improve, but it's something we want the parents to use. Maybe a lot of clubs don't want you evaluating their practices, but our mission is together we can make youth sports a life-changing experience. I don't run a perfect practice. Paul doesn't run a perfect practice. We certainly do the best we possibly can and study constantly to make sure we do it, but we always want to improve as a whole club. So, this challenge that Paul mentioned, like inviting the parents and people to, you just have to watch your own kid, really, and to actually measure the practice and give us some feedback. And we of course, do that on our own with our coaches as well. And you can use it in games, like you said, a lot of people don't realize that. You can use it at your daughter's or son's soccer practice, maybe even as well. Maybe Paul, just add to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, a couple things. I would like to invite all parents to track practices of their son or daughter over the next 2 weeks and email them to me. Email me the PDF or a screenshot at paul@juniorrain.com. So we'd love to get some statistical feedback on our practices, whether it's in Carlsbad or Riverside or even Paramount, all the different age groups. And all the numbers should look different for certain age groups. And like we talked about, there's room obviously for growth and improvement in what we do, and that's why we want the feedback. So 2 weeks, track as many as your player as you can, and then at the end of the month, we'll select one lucky winner for a little gift for submitting into the contest. So it's a great thing, and some of the, like we talked about, some of the activity tracker, it's not a perfect tool either, right? I actually got to present at NARS, the North American Rink
Conference
and Expo a couple years ago with USA Hockey, just a few minutes about how we use activity trackers, and there was some discussion there with some of the USA Hockey guys that we brought up that it's missing a couple things. I think there's a category of decision making that's not in there. That's a little bit harder to measure, and then also about battling, won battles, lost battles, that kind of thing. So some of those things are a little bit harder to measure, but really important too. So this is just kind of a start and a basis that we like to use, and it's really great for tracking obviously the activity, and as we know, especially at the younger ages, the more activity, the more movement, the more learning they're doing. So that's really important.
So what it'll allow you to do, so you have an hour practice, for example, it'll allow you to actually measure your son or your daughter, how many minutes of that 60 minutes did my child spend skating? How many minutes of the whole practice did they spend with the puck on their stick? How many passes did they made? How many shots did they take? How much interaction with the coach did they have? And pretty cool to actually measure that. And then, like I said, I recommend do it in a game as well, and see maybe how the practice compares to a game. Do it different types of practices. A lot of our all of our age groups, they might have a different type of practice midweek and a different one on towards the end of the weekend, or Tuesday to a Thursday. See how those compare. And then, like Paul mentioned, so a couple key things. Number one is to make it really, the easiest way is to do the mobile coach, USA Hockey mobile coach on your phone app, and then the tracker there, because you can just do it automatically from your phone. Run the clock. We used to have to do paper and pencil. That was a lot harder. This is pretty easy, and then you could just take a screenshot and email it to yourself and copy, and copy Paul Junior Rain, so we can see. And then just maybe Paul, speak to some of the differences, because obviously we're going to have different numbers with an 8U practice than with a 16U practice, for example.
Yeah, so and we've talked a little about this before in some of the shows, especially at the younger ages, right? The focus, especially on the 8 and under, 10 under, is a high activity rate. So out of a total ice time, we're looking for amount of skating anywhere between 45, 50, 55 minutes, especially at the 8 and unders. We're looking to hit that 50-minute mark. And we've talked to USA Hockey and compared those numbers with other clubs, and they were very impressed with that. So that was always a good goal of myself and our club, to stay up in that 50-minute mark of 8 and under. And that's really how that, if you think about it, you watch another type of practice. I want to challenge people too for one more thing. Part of the challenge is to submit an anonymous other club or other program tracking. So you don't have to put the name of the club or name of the program, but I'd love to get some other stats on it, because I've done it and seen the difference. You walk into any local rink before one of your son or daughter's games, track a whole practice, pick a player, and you'll see what I've seen a lot is there's a lot of standing around. And certain age groups, there's room for standing and there's room for teaching. And what we talk about standing is that rest period, right? And that's as we get in the older ages, activity for an 18, 16 under is not going to be 50, 55 minutes of skating, right? Their bodies aren't built, their physical capacities, their energy systems aren't built that way. There's more work to rest ratios we talked about before. So they're going to need more rest, so there's more recovery, and there are shorter, more intense bursts of play, more games simulated. So it's more like a shift of 30, 40 seconds, and then they get the rest of a, 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. So it's more almost simulating a game environment. Obviously there's different drills, and you can move that around, spread it around where you want to hit lots of repetitions with certain skill. But at those younger ages, if kids are standing around 8 and under, 10 under, those are where we see some of the problems, and that's where we get in some of the insufficient skill development.
Yeah, so just a few things to add to that. We talked before a lot about the windows of trainability, right? So the 8 and under levels, those young levels, and it slowly changes as they get older. They don't deplete their glycogen stores, right? So there's a skill book. We'll talk a little about that. They don't deplete their glycogen stores. They don't need the recovery time. We actually want to get them to be moving close to 100% as the entire time, because kids learn by doing. We talked about this before. Kids learn by doing, not by being told or whatever, by feeling kinesthetically and everything. So we want them in motion the entire time and learning, getting as much repetition and as much activity as possible. The 8U level, that's not going to do their bodies any harm for them to be going almost the whole 60 minutes. At the older levels, kids learn by doing, but they can also start to learn by watching, by talking to a coach, and they also need to rest. So they go more intensely, they deplete their glycogen stores, and it gets to a certain point where they can't sprint the entire time. They need to recover, and they can sprint again. So we actually want them to be resting some more, especially if it's hard. Like, they can maybe do some passing drills and things for longer, some stationary rep stuff, but we want them to be sprinting hard, resting, and then sprinting hard again versus going half speed the entire time. So those numbers are going to look completely different than an 8 and under practice. And they can also cognitively do more stuff while they're resting.
That's the big one, right? Once they start to hit 12 and under, 14, 16, 18, it's the cognitive and the perceptual skills they start to be able to understand and dissect things and understand why they're doing it. And that decision-making process starts to come in. And that's why they speak specifically it's critical at the 12 and under and up, is those small area games are really critical for kids' development, because that's the decision making, that's the hockey sense, that's the type when those skills are, the body's open for that. The brain, it's the brain is ready for that, right? And that's important that we don't miss those. And at the younger ages, it's still not quite ready, cognitively ready yet for that. But that's why the activity is so important at those younger ages.
So at those ages, versus with maybe a 12 or 14 under practice, a kid who's watching a small area game before their shift comes in, they might start to see some tendencies about, where the puck rims around, or how their team's attacking, or for example, off of a certain, when you put a more complex rule and you have to take it behind their net, they start there watching, they're trying to pick that up, versus an 8 under practice, where we actually want them just going through that competition over and over and over again, and they're learning from, okay, I lost the puck there, I didn't get there fast enough, naturally, without thinking about it, just naturally learning kind of kinesthetically. And
then myself, and I think all our over coaching time, we make those mistakes where, you have an 8 and under group, say 8, 10 kids, and you spend 5 minutes on trying to explain this drill and how to do it. And then, or even a 10 and under, sometimes 12 and under, and then you say, everyone's get it, and no one has a clue of what you're doing. So what do you mean? I spend 5 minutes talking about it, right? Because it's not the right age for that. Yeah. So that's important, and I it's great when I get to run 12 and under practice too, doing a smaller game, and I've had several kids say, "Oh, I get it now," and they were watching the smaller game when I was telling them, hey, this is how you do it, odd man rush game, you go here, and everyone learns differently, right? And there's some of the 1200 kids like, well, I don't get it, I draw it out, I don't get it, and then they saw their teammates do it, and they go, oh, I get it, and that's those light bulb moments, and those are exciting things as a coach and as a director, is you see that you actually can see kids learning, and I think that's a real neat thing. And at the under 8 and under, 10 and under, it's about activity, it's about that skill development, it's about the doing, it's go, 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 go. Sometimes at the 10 under you bring it back a little bit, and then go a little bit more. So it's that continuous feel of as they grow in their bodies and their brain, things change, things are going to look different, and that's why we talked about, that NHL practice, that college practice looks different than an 18 under practice and an 8 under practice. It should all look different. The tracking, the numbers should look different. The resting, how you're teaching, how you're coaching the kids should be different. How you hold them accountable, everything should be different at each age group, right? All in the right mindset of develop them into their fullest potential.
Now, just clarify again. So Paul's put out an extra challenge. So a lot of you guys may have seen Joyce already put out a challenge, a social media challenge. We have a lot of people commenting and liking and following us on Facebook and Instagram to win weekly prizes. She's going to be announcing the first one actually right after the show today. So we have the first winner for that contest right after the show. So we have an extra special bonus prize that Paul's throwing out some more prizes here. So we better stock up on some stuff. But this an extra prize for a draw of the people that submit the track practices. So again, over the next 2 weeks, track your son or daughter's practice. Send Paul an email with the screenshot or the PDF that you can export, and then we'll select from there. We'll talk more about it then too. Now, I do want to say we talked about how the age groups are different. We're not going to necessarily see 55 minutes of activity at a 16U practice or even a 14U practice, but we have seen we've tracked other older practices before. We still want an activity level. We've seen some pretty poor, efficient older level practices as well.
Well, I think at all different age groups we see bad practices around the hockey world, right, in hockey community, and that's really what it's about. Is that, well, why are we talking about this? Well, we want hockey players to have a better experience and get better, not just in our program but other programs too. Like if the Ducks down the street or someone else want to use the activity tracker to make their practices better, great. We're not hiding this, right? USA Hockey's not hiding this. That the whole mission of USA Hockey and the Reign is to make sure we develop good people and good hockey players, and in that declaration of principles of the NHL, it's all together. We're a hockey community, and we want things to be better. So the older age groups, those are times where they start to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So they can work. So if they're working on a specific skill or habit, they can really understand why they're doing it and really buy into, hey, if I want to be a better player, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to repeat it, and master that skill. And that's critical that they improve on those skill sets, right? And then some of the team play concepts come into play, and obviously with that is the decision making, understanding different situations, concepts, and those are all like a lot of that stuff is done with smaller games, and a lot of stuff is done through different types of gameplay. And I think that's somewhere. Sometimes when we talk about skill development, we just think drill, and there's two sides. And we talked about it a lot last time was about the read, plan, and do, or a couple weeks ago was about the read, plan, and do. That's the skill, is understanding that the do part is important, but so is the read and plan. And if we don't train guys in small area games and game situations, they're not going to develop those skills they can do during a game. So there's a couple sides of skill development, and I think it's important that we develop all of those skill sets as a whole player, and that's why practices throughout a week are going to look different. They're covering different things, and that's why the numbers and activities is going to look different as well.
And so one of the things I think even at the older levels, even when there's rest periods and things like that, what we've seen before is too much time on explanations, right? So where the older levels, ideally what we're looking for, maybe it may be half or even less of the activity rate of an 8U practice. So maybe instead of 15 minutes, it's 30, 20. It depends on what they're working on again. But but ideally it's because they're going in some kind of shift format and things like that. So they're going and resting. What we don't want to see is 30 minutes, 40 minutes of explanation time, right? Where a coach is explaining the drill at the board for 10 minutes at a time. Beforehand. So those are some key areas for us to be able to evaluate even and see the difference in those older and younger practices.
Yeah, I think we've learned that ice utilization is really critical, right? And if you see, walk in a rink and nobody's moving on the ice, probably a bad practice. And that's like the funny line is that you're basically just burning money, right? Because you're wasting time. Ice is a commodity; it's hard to come by, and something has to be going on, some kind of learning. If you think about it like a classroom, And if everyone is just sitting in their desks with their head down, probably not learning much, right? So if you walk into a hockey rink and nobody's moving and nothing is happening, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, for any kind of extended period of time, right?
Yeah, and maybe there's some transition from drill to drill, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's got to be something happening for us to develop and learn. And I think that's important that we understand that. And the other thing we still need to do a better job of, I think, and we've learned that as I've learned as being part of the youth hockey, is that competition creates energy. And sometimes you run a practice and you'll feel like I've walked into different other programs rink, and the rink is completely dead and there's no energy. It's really low. There's 12, 15 kids on the ice on a full sheet for a peewee something practice, and it may look somewhat organized sometimes, but then there's a lot of downtime. There's no energy. There's no engagement. And then on the flip side, you put on 30, 40 kids on the ice, and there's a high activity. There's a high amount of chaos. And within that, creating competition. I think that's what makes really good drills is, we talked about, skating, thinking, competing, puck skills, and I think those decision makings and those competitions, especially as we get older in the 10, 12U and up, is really important. And I read a great book by Pete Carroll. He talks about the competition cauldron. So he creates with the Seattle Seahawks, he creates all these environments where people are competing all the time, right? So teammates are competing against each other, making people better, and it creates this energy and excitement, and it obviously helps for development.
We just want to welcome a couple of our viewers. We had Robert joined us earlier, Berger, Joyce, and Tom Eisenman. Thank you for your comment. I think he's taking a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek. He says Ben Frank is the best. I think it's just kind of giving you a bit of a hard time. But thanks for watching, guys. Paul, just when people are doing this, we've talked a lot about tracking the practice and how to do it and where to download the thing and what we're looking for and the challenges, special bonus we're offering. We talked about the differences at the age groups and how really if you're interested in understanding some of those differences or why, like what we talked about, it comes back to the windows of trainability that are defined by USA Hockey and the USOC from sports science. And this book that you're holding right here, the skill book from USA Hockey, Skill Progression for Youth Hockey from USA Hockey. Paul's given probably 1,000 of these or so out in the last year or two. We have these, USA Hockey sends these to us at no charge for our families. So if you're interested in understanding some of that stuff further, part of this challenge we have today, and the reason we're talking about this track, we want you and the parents and the kids and everyone engaged with what we're doing so we can be the best at what we do and we can all understand and be on the same page, and we're open to getting better and to learning about our own things. We want you to understand what we're trying to do, what we're working on, and help us become better. So that's why sharing the tracker is a great way for you to understand what's actually happening on the ice and give us some feedback. And then these books that we give out, that this is what we aim to accomplish in all of our practices and our training programs with our age groups, and it's all right there in black and white as far as what we want to achieve at each age group, and I'll show you that'll explain some of the differences that we're looking for in the activity track for the practice. Paul, do you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, I just want to kind of go over a couple of the focus points. So, for example, at 8 and under, they talk about fun, engagement, active practices, and age-appropriate training. And then you flip all the way through to the 16 and 18 under, and the focus points, again, I just want to compare the two. So remember, fun, engagement, active practices, and age-appropriate, which we're talking before. That's 8U. 16 and 18 under, fun and engagement.
Number 1.
Practice structure, age-appropriate training, skill development, body contact, body checking. And this is when we get into team play. They talk about training, and they talk about learning to compete, right? So those are, if you look at the overall development of a hockey player, when we're talking about, from a 6-year-old to a 16-year-old, 8 to 18-year-old, you see the path there. And I think it's our job as administrators and coaches to really make sure we give the best experience for people. And that's why, like we said, we're using these tools to grow and improve our program. And that's why we want the feedback, and we want to make sure that we're hitting these things. And that's why the curriculum was born. And that's why the curriculum will continue to evolve and really develop into something that covers everything all the time for every age group, and it's repeatable, and everyone's getting that same experience and exposed to the right development for those right windows of trainability.
Let's just show this book close again. So this is the book we're looking for. It has a youth player in the front, but it goes all the way up to 18 and under. Skill progression for youth hockey. If you would like a copy, email Paul or your age group leader or coach. We can get you one. This really is our manual for what we come back to on the, and then we can go into further depth when we need to. But the overview kind of every age group and what we're looking to achieve at each, and how each one feeds into the next. And then that tracker is a great way for us to, so we design it based on the scientific principles. We experiment, we make the best, we see the practices, make the best we can, and then we can measure with the tracker. And so we can measure on our own with the tracker, and we can also engage other coaches and parents and groups as well to measure the practices and see and really be a part of it as well.
And I like to remind people, and I try not to forget myself, is that this put out by USA Hockey is supported and funded by the National Hockey League. So the top league in the world, the best players go to, that make millions of dollars, believe in this, right? That believes that's how youth hockey should be. I think as a country, we're still a long ways away, obviously, but we're trying to do our part and develop our program, and then any different speaking engagements around the country. We go to these different conferences, so that's what we're trying to do, is to make sure that we give every kid the best chance to learn and succeed. And I think that's what it comes down to. And knowing that USA Hockey and the National Hockey League are behind it and supporting this, and that's what we lean on to guide the way for other youth organizations and our kids and our families is an important thing and a fun thing that we get to do.
So I just want to add that, first of all, Paul, Jenny Janicki wants one of those books, so you got to get her one. You got to get her one in practice here. We have some up here in the office, and then just to add to what Paul mentioned, I just spent the weekend. I was with Ken Martell up in Fremont area, NorCal, talking to all the NorCal 8U coaches about this type of thing. Ken did a presentation on active practices at 8U. You mentioned the NHL is behind this, so Ken and the other US Hockey staff that send us these books, their salaries, their positions and things are completely funded by the NHL. We've talked about this before. The NHL pays $8 million a year, and it's probably only going up to USA Hockey to run the ADM program, because the NHL, even if you just look at selfishly from a business growth standpoint, they want more American-born players in the NHL, and they want more Americans to play hockey. Two big things, right? More Americans playing hockey, so they know that they need to give people good experience so they fall in love with hockey for life. The more people play hockey, the more fans there's going to be. More Americans that play hockey at the highest levels, so we have Americans making the NHL teams. We have Team USA doing great in the Olympics and World Championships and these things, which brings popularity to hockey in the United States, which again grows the game, grows the NHL businesses. So they put money specifically because they believe in these principles, because it believes that they will keep kids in the sport longer, because it's going to be more fun and help them get better faster. The better you get, the more fun you have, and also to help them, the United States, to develop players at the highest levels, because based on the numbers in the past, based on the numbers of American-born players, we're behind of what we should have as top end players. And they're seeing the results already from the implementing the ADM program since 2011. Yeah,
and to clarify before we go, the ADM, American Development Model, doesn't mean 8 and under mite hockey. It is a blueprint for clubs, age-appropriate training to develop kids to their fullest potential based off of science. So it's age-appropriate training based off of science to give kids the full development to reach their genetic potential. So it doesn't mean 8 and under hockey. It includes 8 and under hockey, but it also includes 10 under, 12 under, 14 under, 16 under, 18 under. So it's elite programming, and that's some of the misconception of what the ADM is. It's just these, that's my hockey and that's it, which is not true. It's elite programming at the highest levels to give the kids the best chance to succeed and develop into their full potential.
They use it with their highest levels, with Team USA, with the National Team Development Program, with the World Junior teams. They use ADM programming at the highest levels of hockey in the United States. And just so you know, like, it's where the science is, it's only accelerating, right? The amount of science and research that goes into the ADM. Now in the National Team Development Program rink, they have players wearing accelerometers. They're measuring their energy levels in this style of practices. They're measuring the acceleration and deceleration, these things, how it relates to concussions, and all these things. And this is like high-level sports science and research that's going into this program, being funded by the NHL, U.S. Olympic Committee, these types of things that are involved, and pretty exciting stuff. I think you can tell we're passionate about it. For us to be able to implement it all the way down, and we want these our 8 and under and 10 and under players to be fed into that system of growth all the way up.
Yeah, and I was just watching something a couple days ago about the Pittsburgh Penguins. A lot of people know that's one of my favorite teams. Nothing against the Kings. I love the LA Kings too. But Mike Sullivan, who is a USA Hockey guy, head coach of the Penguins, I saw in one of their practices using the gate game, which is a USA Hockey drill that we use here. I also was watching a recap of the Stanley Cup run they had a couple of years ago, and they were doing a small area game during the playoff run. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it just shows you that these are things can be done at the highest level, and that's what we've seen with the NHL training camps. A lot of the 3-on-3 stuff that they're doing in the development camps, so the cross-ice stuff they're now doing is it's becoming and now known as elite programming, and it's important for us to understand that the ADM is bigger than just 8 and under hockey. It's for every age group, and it is it's the next step in hockey development, and it's elite programming. And this stuff has been around for years, but it's been kind of hit and miss, and now it's been packaged together to really guide people using the progression book and the model to help develop players.
Great. Okay, so just to recap today, we appreciate the comments, giving us a like and a hello on the feed here, so we know that whether you're watching live or on the replay, and sharing. We have our social media contest going right now, which includes all the different posts on our social media pages, following us on Facebook, following us on Instagram, and commenting and liking posts. And then we have the extra special bonus challenge from Paul today on the next 2 weeks, submitting tracked practices, a screenshot or a PDF, send an email on over to Paul from any of our age groups or any of our teams at any locations, so we can get some additional feedback. And then we're going to select a winner from those submissions as well. So we'll do it this way. If you submit 5 practices, you're going to get 5 entries into this contest. If you submit 1, you'll still get 1. So even if you can just do 1, or if you can do multiple, we'd love to see those. And this goes even beyond this 2 weeks. If you want to continue to send us things in the future, we love to see that. Paul, any parting words before we wrap up today?
No, I think that's great, Ben. We want people to do this because we want to be engaged and involved in their child's development, and we also want to improve as an organization, and we want to see the numbers. If it's a bad day for a practice, bad numbers, we'll digest it, we'll look at it, we'll learn from it, we'll improve from it. I think that's what we're trying to do as an organization, is improve and get better every day, and we know there's always room for that.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Paul, and we will see everyone next Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Again, we don't have our video assistant here, so